All right, let's do this.
Hey, I'm so ready. What's up, Caitlin?
What's up, Jen?
How are you?
Hi, Beetle people. How's everybody doing? So it is Monday. The weekend has passed, and the Yesterday movie came out officially on Friday. And though Jen and I didn't see it together, we saw it at the exact same time.
True.
In different theaters. And immediately she texted me after saying, "Oh my God, I have things to say."
So much to
and
talk about.
I'm like, no, gonna save it for this to make it way more interesting.
Gotcha.
And not just have it be like a review. And full disclosure, neither myself or Jen are critics. We're just Beatles fans. Yeah, so I don't even want to call this a review necessarily. Maybe just like a first impressions, if you will, what we thought. And also another disclosure, there will be spoilers. If you
So much
have
spoilers.
not seen this film yet, turn this video off right now and come back after you've seen the movie and then, comment your thoughts and all that good stuff.
I have a disclosure as well.
Okay, yes.
I was a little drunk when I saw it. So, some of my thoughts might be a little confusing, but there you go.
Okay, well, and also, I have only seen the film once, and I believe you've only seen it once as well.
Right, yeah.
So this is literally just first impressions. So, once again, this is in no way a professional review. So I guess we should start from
get into
the
it.
beginning. So the movie is directed by Danny Boyle, who is also the director of Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, and Slumdog Millionaire. Was written by, hold on, I have my notes here, Jack Barth and Richard Curtis. Now, Richard Curtis has written so many romantic comedies like Love Actually, Pirate Radio, which is actually not so much a romantic comedy, even though it does have a romance story in it. Bridget Jones' Diary, Notting Hill, and even Mr. Bean. He wrote those
Really?
Mr. Bean movies.
That's funny.
So, total British comedy and romantic.
Would you call
Stuff.
this movie a romantic comedy?
Unfortunately, I would.
Yeah.
Which I was
wasn't
not happy
expecting
about.
as much on that. That was one thing I wanted to talk to you about. Because
Yeah, no, we're definitely gonna get into that because I feel like. So when the first trailer came out 4 months ago, it was just, all right, this guy gets hit by a bus and he wakes up and he's the only guy in the world that doesn't, he's the only guy in the world that remembers the Beatles music and nobody else around him seems to know. Now, maybe a month or two later, there was a second trailer that came out that talked about this love story with Jack, the lead character, and his manager friend, Ellie. And when I saw that second trailer, I was like a bit disappointed, which I
Right.
think most Beatle fans are disappointed at this aspect because we wanted to see a movie totally just about our boys.
Right.
So the
It
fact
felt very forced, yeah?
that very forced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chemistry between them was weird.
Yeah.
They kind of tried to play it off like it was unrequited love on her part, but then also on his part, so then it didn't make any sense. Like, why aren't they
Right.
just communicating? I was not a fan of that.
No, I wasn't either. But once again, we're diehard Beatle fans, and I know that there are casual Beatle likers who have seen this movie and have, I've seen people post stuff online where they're like, it's incredible. And so I think that's what we're missing, and I'm really sad that Angela isn't here sitting with us. She's already at work.
What's up, Angela?
Yay! Hi, honey, I love you. Because, she's not a hardcore Beatle fan, but she actually also didn't love this love story.
Yeah, it's not that I didn't want a love story, period. I just didn't feel like the love story was done well. It wasn't a great plot point. And when there was just so much else interesting going on, trying to force this love story, which again, like the characters' chemistry, I felt like they had it, but then like it didn't make sense because one was the girl was like, oh, but you need to tell me you love me, and he was like, but I wasn't
it's
into
very
it,
confusing and
wasn't
all
into
over the
it.
place. And the one thing that really gets me about this is that, of course, Jack gets successful using the Beatles songs, and she was always, his manager, and she encouraged him to go and be a musician. And then all of a sudden, at the height of his fame, it's like, you need to choose between your career or coming back home with me because I'm not giving up my teaching job, when all the while before she was like, I got you a gig here, I support you, and your music career is very important. I'm like, where?
And even when he said he wanted to quit, she told him not to. So I was...
Yeah. So, pardon my language, but what the fuck?
What was that?
I don't know. It was very weird, very all over the place.
And then when, she goes into his room and he's got all these Post-it notes on his wall of like all the Beatles songs he remembers and like categories like love songs, whatever. And she wasn't in the love song category or something, and she was upset by this. I was like, what is this?
Well,
what even?
I could understand this at a certain point because he's coming up with all these songs out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's like, oh, who are you writing these about? Why can't I be, and I love her. Like, who are you writing these about?
Right.
If
Who's Michelle?
Exactly. Like,
right.
Who that bitch? So I definitely get that part, but I hated it. I wish this movie wasn't centered around that, where the Beatles are just the backing story.
Right.
But it got all of us to go to the theater and see it. So marketing, it totally worked.
But so it's like it got 75% of the way there. It was like, oh, but they're going to try to also make it a love story. We're going to try to also do this fantasy thing. But then they didn't delve enough into each of those things. It just was all over the place.
Yeah, very confused in certain parts.
Right.
But overall, did you like it?
I did like it. I stayed till the very end, the way through the credits.
We have to get. I want to try and do this in as order as possible, even though we've skipped all over the place already. But yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
Perfect.
But overall, I enjoyed this movie.
Yes.
Is it something I would go to the theater and see again? I doubt it, unless someone was like, "Hey, I really want to see it. Will you come with me?"
Sure.
I don't think I would spend my money to go and see it again. Now, if it, eventually in a year or so comes on TV, hell yeah, I'm going to turn it on.
Oh, I'll definitely be falling asleep to this movie a lot. Netflix, yes, please. I will be watching it, I'm sure.
Yesterday and Chill.
Oh, definitely. 100%.
So, let's see. What should we talk about next? So we talked about how much we hate the love story.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into like the actual like plot of the movie, because this is where I was confused.
Okay.
I felt like I got more of the plot only because I had seen the trailer, as opposed to what they actually explain in the movie. They don't really get into the magic of why this happened.
Yes, and that's very confusing.
It's like a throwaway comment. There was a blackout. Okay. They don't connect the reason he remembers the Beatles enough to the blackout.
Right. It's just this sort of like, they had to explain why he, at the time, is the only person who seems to remember this. And I wish that they would have investigated this more, because that is actually interesting.
It's very interesting, and they just kind of like threw it away. Like, like I said, I mean, they explain it in the trailer more than they did in the actual movie.
Right. Well, the only thing they explain more in the movie is that it lasted for about 12 seconds, and in that 12 seconds, Jack gets hit by the bus on his bicycle, ends up in the hospital, loses his teeth, blah blah blah, which I kind of want to say is a nod to Paul McCartney's accent.
I saw that, definitely.
Which I love the little bits and pieces that you kind of get in there for the hardcore Beatle fans.
Well, there was definitely the shot of
McCartney with the camera.
He had the camera, and I was like, oh, that's appalling.
No, and the best was being next to Angela watching this, and me like grabbing her arm, and I go, honey, it's the picture. She's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So yeah, that was good. And of course, the shot of the back of his head for the cover of the album, which is a nod to A Hard Day's Night.
when they were going over what to call the album, and
Yeah.
I know different reasons. Well, that's a problematic name. We
Yeah,
can't
we
call it the
can't
White
call
Album.
it the White
But
Album.
my problem with that was like, well, technically the White Album is not titled The White Album.
Yes.
So
I
kind of
that thought.
that was
ran
nitpicky,
across-
but it bugged me.
ran across my mind too. But you and I are nitpickers like that.
right.
Which is why it's so good to have Beatle friends. It's so good to have Beatle
Exactly.
friends.
But I wanted more of that. Like,
Right,
this
I
is
did
a
too. I
really
wanted it
interesting
to be-
plot point. I loved like the little things when he would mention something, like he mentions Coca-Cola and no one's ever heard of Coke, so he does this little Google thing and it's disappeared. I wanted more of that. I
Yeah.
wanted like 3 or 4 big like pop culture things, and then for him to connect the dots back to the accident, which he doesn't really.
No, they just continue their lives going without this stuff.
Right. They don't.
Without
I want to
cigarettes,
know
without
the rules
Coca-Cola.
of this world. I
Yeah.
want you to establish, like, what is the magic? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Why did this happen? And then, jumping ahead a little bit, getting into the other two, the lady, the
Yes.
English lady and the Russian guy, who also remember the Beatles. What's their story? Why do they know? Did they also get hit by a bus? Let's talk about that.
Are there more people? And I love that they
Right.
found each other, because you would never think in a million years you'd be so happy to meet someone else that remembers Yellow Submarine.
Right.
It's like, yay,
Right,
we all
right.
live in a yellow submarine.
Right,
And,
but it's like, where
you know,
did that come from? Like, that's
Right.
interesting. Let's explore that. Less of this weird love story, more of that.
Right.
This is where I'm...
And as a huge fan of Back to the Future, I love stuff like that. Alternate timelines and
Sure.
universes. And they could have gone so far with that. And
Yeah.
they didn't, because it's a romantic comedy.
Right. There could have been just so much more little funny little nods, like things
Yeah.
he'll mention and they'll be like, what? I've never heard of that brand, or I've never heard of that actor or something. Like, they
Right.
could have just played more with this world, and then for him to actually figure out why this happened never gets mentioned.
No.
Never. I'm just like, okay, well, what else exists in this world? And Jim, my husband, he leans over to me in the movie and they're like, I feel like this movie is giving Ed Sheeran too much credit. Because if the
Right.
Beatles didn't exist, and Oasis didn't exist, which we didn't talk about, but
Yes.
also Oasis, Rolling Stones, yes, Oasis, no.
Which,
Again,
that's
more
weird.
of this. I want more of
But
who's
also,
real, who's not.
the best one that they gave a nod to is that Cilla Black exists. Because, of course,
Right.
Jack goes to Liverpool because he feels like, well, if I don't actually go there and see Penny Lane, see Strawberry Fields, that I can't write these things, because people will be like, well, how the hell does he know about Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields? So,
Right.
and I was also very disappointed that that wasn't explored more, that he could only go there for a couple of days because he had this big old gig
Yeah.
or whatever going on. But Cilla Black, you know, when he said, oh, well, because Kate McKinnon, the manager, which we need to get into that too.
So much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Why are you going to Liverpool? What's in Liverpool? And he goes, Cilla Black, who, of course, was also managed by Brian Epstein. And, like, so
Let's
how,
go into that. There's
how
so much.
does Cilla Black and Brian Epstein exist, but the Beatles don't?
Right.
And I don't understand.
But yeah, no, it was just like they just didn't establish the rules of this world, of this universe. And
Right.
Jim's comment about Ed Sheeran, I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe Elton John exists, because there's a little bit of
Well, they say
of
that
but I'm
Coldplay
like,
exists.
does
Now,
he?
the funny thing about Ed Sheeran, I was doing some research. Apparently, Chris Martin from Coldplay was supposed to do this role, and not Ed Sheeran.
Interesting. That would have been.
Which I think that's why the comment in the beginning when Jack is playing Yesterday for the very first time, and his friend goes, well, it's no Fix You.
Sure. Yeah.
They probably left that in, because it's a really hilarious line. Like, this movie really does have its funny moments.
Oh, it's good.
I laughed a lot, and every time, a Beatles song came on, I was smiling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah,
I
just don't get it.
They just needed to just delve into it more. I was just like, it's just not enough for me to grasp what's happening.
Yeah.
Where is where are we at in this world? Because it's such an interesting concept.
It's so, yeah, because I wrote it. I'm still mad that someone from Universal was listening to me talk to I think I had this conversation with my brother at one point years ago about like, oh, if the Beatles didn't exist but you remembered their songs, would you capitalize off of it? And of course everybody says yes. It's such a great concept for a film.
Right.
Why did they have to ruin it
Right.
with this? I
Right.
mean, yes, you can have a love story, but have it be a strong love story that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It just felt like they were taking time away from the interesting plot to give to this not so interesting plot.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
of course the stupid trope that I hate, which is the girl's like, I'm just so plain and boring, and it's
But
like,
I'm waiting
we
for
know
you
you're
to
like
love me.
a supermodel. Like, shut up. Like, get out of here with
Yeah,
that.
why does she want to be with Jack of all people?
I
Which
just-
they make fun of it in the movie. Kate McKinnon as the manager is like, you're just an all right, round looking guy. There's really nothing appealing about you.
I hate it when movies try to force me to believe that very attractive people are ugly. It's so frustrating. Because if you saw these people on the street, you'd be like, they're a supermodel. Like, oh, but no, this is wrong. I hate that trope. So annoying. But let's talk about Jack. What do you think of the actual actor? Like, in the
Hamish
music?
Patel?
Yeah, what are we...
I think that it was great that they went with someone who was an unknown.
Right.
I mean, because I IMDb'd him, and he's only been in a few movies in the last decade. And... he's a very believable, like, I don't want to say relatable, because this is, of course, a fantasy thing that no one can ever relate to, but he's just an average guy.
Right.
Average guy. He was going to be a teacher, which I also think is a nod to Paul McCartney, because Paul McCartney always said that if he wasn't a musician, he was going to end up being an English teacher.
Right.
Which is exactly what Jack did. Beatle nerd. But as far as, singing, like, he doesn't have a bad voice or anything.
I thought it was believable.
Yeah.
Like, he could pull off, the majority of the songs pretty well. There wasn't anything where I was like, oh, no. Like, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, no, the way that the music was done didn't bother me. The only thing that did kind of make me think, and this could be a whole topic for another video, is that they stayed pretty true to the original music.
The arrangements.
The arrangements,
yeah,
exactly. Sure. Would that be popular in 2019?
That's the other thing that got me. And obviously I think some songs would definitely. Let It Be is timeless, whatever. And you could also update it, but I don't know that necessarily even like All My Lovin', would that play well to today's audience?
Whole first thing where he's making the little EP where he does She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. I'm like, yes, they're great timeless songs, and people who enjoy them, now, of course, enjoy them, but
would it make sense?
It's of its time. It's of the 60s. You're like, that is classic, great rock and roll music, which, of course, rock and roll is pretty much non-existent these days.
Right.
In a sense. Mm-hmm. So, unless you delve into, like, indie bands that no one's ever heard of, which is probably, in reality, if this really happened, that's probably as successful as Jack would have gotten. He would have been, like, big in the indie underground scene.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. I mean, it's some of the songs I was just like, I don't know that they would work if just like you heard it on the radio
he really be
today and
these big stadiums with.
Are you gonna like go up against Jay-Z and Beyonce with this? I don't think so.
He wouldn't be invited to go play at Coachella.
No. And I mean, I guess that's why maybe they paired him up with like an Ed Sheeran type, because maybe he would play to that audience. But I don't even. I mean, I'm not that much of an expert on modern music. Let's just put it out there. But I don't even know that Ed Sheeran has that much mass appeal. I think he's kind of niche, right? And I mean, most people have heard of him. But at the same time, like, I don't...
But also, most of the places that Ed Sheeran played in the movie were in the UK. They didn't really talk about him being here in America too much, so maybe he's, a relatively big star. Like, you could go up to anybody and be like, oh, Shape of You, or
definitely.
anything like
He's
that.
definitely got his
Who
big
he
hits.
is. But if he, no.
But again, I don't think he's like Beyonce level,
right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what they were trying to make Jack seem like he was, even though his album hadn't even come out yet. It didn't. I was very confused.
Yeah.
I was like, what kind of like market are they trying to like push here? Like from the producing side, if you're Kate McKinnon's character, that had me a little lost. It's like he's super famous already, even though none of these songs are even out yet, right?
Yeah. Well,
it was. I mean, and maybe
he's
it's
like
just
going
like,
viral, and I guess whatever
I guess.
projections, like, oh, you're gone so viral. Once you put out an album, it's gonna sell everywhere, kind of a thing. I guess.
I guess that's more where they're going
really,
for
like,
online famous.
Would these songs really do well if they were brand new? No one had ever heard of them.
Right.
Now.
Right. No one had even ever heard of like a modern version of them, a la Oasis.
Right.
It's a great question.
I
don't know.
That's
hard.
It's
hard.
tough, and that's another problem.
Because he didn't really seem to be trying to update the styles or put a backing track or anything like that.
They kept the arrangements mostly the same. And also, I haven't listened to the soundtrack for this movie yet. I know that it's out. And so we only got little snippets of stuff.
Sure.
We didn't hear a lot of these songs in their entirety. Which I don't know if that's a bad thing, but like, of course, there wouldn't have been enough time in this movie to do something like that, so I understand why there's only little bits and pieces in there. But another thing, why so many Paul McCartney songs? Not all the Beatles were represented properly.
No. Did he do... again, disclaimer, I was drunk when I saw it. Did he do any Ringo?
No.
I didn't think so either.
He did.
I was like, unless I missed something, I don't even think he did. Did he even do like Yellow Submarine, which wasn't
no,
written by Ringo?
it was only mentioned when he met the two other people that also remembered the Beatles.
Which again was not explained, which really frustrated me. I liked that. I liked that they let him to, which we're definitely going to get into. They let him to John and all that, but why? Why did they remember and nobody else? Like, let's talk about it. I just feel like there was weird edits. Like, they had to have explained it at some point, and I was like, I don't know. I missed it.
No, you didn't.
But yeah, there was a lot of very Paul heavy, which as a Paul fan, I appreciate.
And I'm a Paul fan too, but I don't feel like it was very fair.
No.
The only big John Lennon moment was when he did "In My Life."
Yeah. And I would have liked even. Not a Beatles song, but I would have liked an Imagine. Would have been really great. Or
that's another thing I wanted to mention. So if the Beatles never happened, then of course Wings never happened.
Sure.
All these solo things never happened. Probably the Traveling Wilburys never happened. Hell yeah, I would have capitalized on that too. But you know what? That's all a lot. And then this movie probably would have been like 3 hours long, which Beatles fans would enjoy.
Great.
But I guess they just couldn't get into all of that.
Yeah. That was one thing I was like, I wonder if it's a conscious decision to not put any solo work in there, or who knows. I don't know much about licensing and all that, what the kind of stuff that goes into, but
it's just a lot of money.
Yeah. So, John, what do you feel about him? I was in shock.
Hold on.
First of all, shock.
So let's backtrack for a second.
Back it up.
If you are watching this and you have not seen this movie, you need to turn this off right now. Like, no joke. You can get away with all the other spoilers because it won't affect your viewing.
This is huge.
This is huge. This is absolutely huge. Something that I did not expect. Turn this off now. Okay.
Bye, guys. Okay. We're back.
We're back. So, of course, the Russian dude and the Liverpudlian lady meet Jack at one of his shows, and every time you see them, like, you
something's up.
And you didn't know what it was at first,
right.
and like,
if I had to guess, I would have thought.
I thought it was like a relative.
I thought it was, or made a relative of one of the Beatles, you mean?
Yeah.
Or that, or I kind of thought that, like, they did know what he was doing and were going to
expose
him, like, or some kind of, like, I know you ripped this off, like, I'm, Paul's cousin, and here's my list of all his songs, or something like that. I thought it was definitely going to be, like, they were, because the lady especially seemed very, like,
especially being from Liverpool.
I'm watching you. I see what you're doing. So I thought it was going to be a little more, which I don't hate what they did with it, but that could have also been interesting.
Yeah, that also could have been very interesting. So it was a very, like, a plot twist moment when they were like, oh my God, we're so happy. Thank you, because neither one of us can sing.
Right.
And so thank you for keeping the Beatles music out there. We're not mad at you. Like, these songs need to be heard by people because they're the greatest songs of all time.
There was such a beautiful quote, and I want to get it right. Again, I was drunk, but I want to get this quote right. The lady said something to the effect of, if a world without Beatles is a world that's a little bit worse. Does that sound?
I don't
like
remember.
Something like she said. It was really pretty, and I tried to remember it, and I would have written it down, but it was in the movie theater. But it was really sweet. Very sweet moment. Yeah.
And so of course, the Liverpool lady and the Russian guy say they've been doing some digging, and they hand Jack this little piece of paper, and oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps. My hair is standing up on ends. That's how, like, crazy this is. And of course, those of you that have seen the movie know exactly what's about to happen. And so as I'm sitting in the theater and I see the car go up to this random house, and I'm like, okay, weirdly enough, this looks like McCartney's house that he had in Scotland on the farm.
That's exactly what I thought.
And I thought that's exactly where it was going.
I was like, oh my God, Linda's going to be there. What's going to happen?
Or a great cameo by Paul McCartney.
That would have been
amazing.
Would have been amazing. But
I was like,
I feel like if Paul was in this movie, I would have heard about it. So I was just like, where are they going with this? Or,
well, there was the rumor that Paul and Ringo were going to be in it because that whole James Corden scene.
Right.
Which, aren't you also
so
bummed?
Cute. I loved it though.
I'm bummed that it was a dream sequence.
Oh, yeah.
That was stupid.
Again, I kept thinking he was going to get in trouble, and he did not. He gets away with it. Spoiler again. Like, he never gets caught, ever. It's very strange. Even though maybe even this part, like, thought he was going to get away with it.
Right.
So
of course, he pulls up to the house, and you start to see the interior of the house, and you see all these little drawings, and of course, it's like, you want to think it's John, but it doesn't really look Lennon-esque.
It didn't even occur to me that could be John. Like, no, that thought never entered my head.
Well, okay, so as the car's pulling up, and I'm sitting in the theater with Ange, I literally grab her arm like this, and I go, if there's a Beatle in there, I'm going to cry. Like, I leaned over to her and I said that.
A little bit of me was hoping it was going to be Ringo. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be Paul. That would have been amazing. But I thought it might have been Ringo.
Well, so you get into the interior of the house and you see all these little scribbled drawings, and which McCartney paints. Sure. Ringo also paints. But of course,
they all have
all had little artistic things. But it did give away if it was going to be George, if there was gardens and stuff around. But you could see that this is kind of like on a beachy type area. There's a waterfront. And of course...
And I mean, obviously, George died of natural causes, so of course he wouldn't exist. Well...
George died of lung cancer, and there are no cigarettes in this alternate universe.
You know it. You're absolutely right. And I was like, there's no cigarettes. But then again, I'm like, no cigarettes. My thought was, again, because I'm wanting more of this, like, funny, weird world where these other pop culture things didn't exist. Like, I love the Beatles aspect, but I wanted more of that. So I'm like, well, Walt Disney died of lung cancer. Did he live longer?
Like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
You know, and that's kind of like...
all these people that would not have passed away.
Right. Right, and I was like, does Disney exist in this world? Because that would have been, because they did go in at the very end, like Harry Potter.
They can't do that because it's a Universal film. They can't talk about it.
Good point. But I wanted them to just play with that a little bit more, because I'm like, well, if Walt Disney lived longer, what happened there? Like,
right?
There's just so much more to go into. Anyway, so
finally, Jack gets up to this door, and he opens it, and there is an older John Lennon.
I mean,
I
flipped
immediately
my shit.
I immediately start not just welling up like I am right now, just thinking about it. I full on am hysterical, sobbing in the theater, sobbing my eyes out. I did not expect that at all. I didn't think that we were going to get into this, but also, as happy as I was about this scene, and the makeup was done so well.
Oh my God.
So well.
I'd say it was perfect.
Almost perfect.
Because you know what, and that's that is one thing where I will give this movie tons of credit, because that's the one thing they had to get right.
Yeah.
And they did a good job.
But once the actor opened his mouth,
then
he did not sound like John.
No.
And I understand why they cast the guy they cast, because he looks so much like him. Now, the actor is actually uncredited in the movie. If you go on IMDb, actually when I sat through the credits, I was looking to see who played him.
I was like, I gotta find out who this was.
And
not in there.
Not in there. But doing some digging, I found out that it's Robert Carlyle. Now, if you don't know Robert Carlyle, did you ever watch Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
Rumpelstiltskin, y'all. Rumpelstiltskin plays John Lennon.
Which it never, I've seen a lot of Once Upon a Time. It never occurred to me that it even looked like John Lennon until I saw it, and then I'm like, oh my God, he does.
My wife is a special effects makeup artist, so being with her,
brag. Okay.
I've learned a lot, and so when I think about Robert Carlyle and his facial features, he's got the Roman nose
for sure.
Now everything else can be built around that with prosthetics.
Okay.
And that's totally how this won. Just having the little small facial features here in this area, everything else was done with makeup and prosthetics. And that's where those guys got it spot on. Best part of the movie.
Oh, absolutely, by far.
And
I love Jack's reaction to him as well, because I was like, this is me.
But
like,
I
this
also
is me in this moment.
wanted to know more.
Again, like, yeah, I would be, and I was kind of distracted, so I didn't super listen to all the dialogue in the scene.
Well, the thing
but
is,
they didn't.
like,
I don't feel like they really went into like, well, who are you? Like, what is your life like? Like,
well, and
do you like music?
No,
did you write songs?
The thing that I don't get is, why is John Lennon inviting this dude that he doesn't know into his house?
And then that's the other thing. Like, does he know something's up?
No.
It's hard, but it's like,
and he's like, why are you asking me all these questions? Like, what's your problem?
See,
why,
but I don't
why
know,
have you?
Part of me got a little bit of a feeling that like he had. I don't know. Like, did his high school band exist? That's my question.
Yeah, like I want to go.
And that's where I kind of feel like they were going.
I want to know why, essentially, in this timeline, did the Beatles not happen? Did the Quarrymen happen? Did John like playing his guitar, which would have been cool to see if there was like a guitar somewhere hung up around in his house, but you don't see any of it. You just see his doodles and stuff.
Did he pursue music solo? Like, did he just never meet Paul? Who knows? I don't know.
There's a whole bunch of questions that I wanted answered that didn't get answered because they were too damn focused on other stupid shit that we don't care about.
Yeah. What did you think about Kate McKinnon?
Oh, okay. As a out and proud gay woman.
Wait, what?
You're funny. You're funny. I'm leaving that in. Kate McKinnon is the cutest damn thing in the world. And I've loved her even before she was on SNL. She was on a sketch show called The Big Gay Sketch Show on Logo. And it was just, well, there's some straight people on The Big Gay Sketch Show, but it was basically like SNL, but mostly like gay sketches and stuff like that. And I've loved her since then. She's from Long Island, so am I, so represent. And I love her so much and think she's just so cute. I hated her in this role.
I liked bits and pieces, but they just...
She's not good at playing a bitch. Like, it was too much.
Very forced.
Yeah. It didn't seem natural. It was annoying. It was more annoying than it was humorous. And I feel like she was trying too hard to be bitchy and funny.
Right.
and it didn't go well, and I did not enjoy that.
Yeah, I didn't love it. And again, like some of the stuff she was like trying to give him advice on didn't make sense.
It's like, I know you're just trying to be the money grubbing manager, but I can't.
Like I couldn't follow her logic of what she was trying to do either. I don't know. Again, it just felt like, well, we have to have this character, so let's just throw some. And then her like collaborating with Ed Sheeran was.
I feel like
confusing.
Who would have been a better casting choice would have been Emily Blunt.
That could have been fun.
Number one, she's British, so it would have made sense.
Right.
Two, she's really good at being a bitch.
Yeah.
And I just think it would have been comedically better to have her in the role and not Kate McKinnon.
Sure. Yes. That is a good choice. I like that idea. I just her character. I couldn't get behind it. You know, I was trying to figure out her motivations for things that didn't really add up.
Yeah.
It felt like an odd choice. And that being said, like she did have some lines that I chuckled that were funny.
Sure. There were so many little funny points in this movie. Lots of little British humor, which I love British humor, and I thank, the Beatles for introducing me to that kind of style of stuff, like A Hard Day's Night, kind of stuff. And, of course, meeting people from England over these last years working at Hard Rock and, God, it's just so cutthroat, that sense of humor. And I love it. And so there were moments where I found myself laughing in the theater alone. And nobody else, like, getting the little, little jokes here and there. Right. But another thing I wanted to ask you, which we should have done this in the beginning, what was the demographic like in the theater when you saw it?
Good question.
Did you pay attention or were you too wasted?
Well, there's that. But I was in one of the theaters that's with the giant chairs and, so you're pretty isolated so you don't really get a feel of the crowd. I will say that people on either side of us were older couples, and it kind of seemed like maybe it was that. It was adults in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
I didn't see any kids. Like, I would absolutely bring my kids to this movie because my kids are Beatles nerds too. I didn't see any kids at this, but it was a later showing as well.
I saw, I think, 3 teenagers walk in. I don't know if they stayed, but before the lights went down, I saw 3 teenagers. But other than, Angela and I, it was all older folk.
Yeah, and it seemed, and which, checks out, makes sense. A lot of, also, we got to factor in, again, I went to a later movie, so there wouldn't be any kids really there either. But, Toy Story 4 is out, these other big movies are out, so, maybe people are going and seeing those kinds of things. But yeah, it was definitely an older crowd, which I kind of expected. But the theater did seem about 75% full, which I like that. That's good. Anytime anyone's...
Well, when I bought the tickets in the morning, I did it off of Fandango. Nobody else had bought seats for the viewing, so...
you had your pick.
I had my pick of wherever I wanted. So I was a little disappointed in that. And also my theater didn't have too many showings. It only had about 5 showings. I feel like ours
had a lot, but the theater I go to doesn't have a lot of screens because it's like each individual theater is big. But it was about what I expected. I wasn't like shocked either way.
Yeah.
It seemed to have a pretty good showing, and like I said, again, mostly older couples, which I kind of would have expected for a movie like this. One other scene I wanted to talk about with you, which was. Other than, the John scene, my second favorite scene was him with his parents.
Oh my God. The
that parents, was, I would say, the funniest
scene. The parents and Rocky.
The parents are great.
Stole the show. The parents are great, typical, British, family.
Very funny.
Very funny.
Very funny.
The
father,
dad. Especially, that all he cared about when going to see him do the big gig at the hotel was like, are you going to eat all those sandwiches?
Right. And then, Jack getting frustrated when he can't play Let It Be, and he's like, this would be like Leonardo da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa, which opportunity again for them to joke.
Right.
They could have been like, who's that?
What's the Mona Lisa?
Again, they didn't, they started this game and didn't play it all the way through.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, but like, you know, I just wanted, that's like the most frustrating thing for me in this movie. I keep going back to it, but it's just like, what are the rules? Like, let's establish this. Like, let's keep this up. This is a fun thing to play with. And like, again, like the trailer explained that when he got hit by the bus, that's when it happened. But the movie does not explain that.
Right.
At least not well.
No.
Like, if you went in there cold, you'd be like, wait, what? Because it literally, the blackout thing is like one throwaway comment.
Yeah. And another thing that I wish they would have touched on while Jack was in Liverpool, why didn't he try and find the cavern? Why didn't he go to Matthew
I thought
Street?
about that too.
Because
Does the cavern exist?
Well, the cavern would have existed, no doubt,
Sure.
because it was
but would
in
it
the late
still
50s.
Be around?
No, and
No,
we know
it would
that for a
not.
fact because the cavern closed for a short period of time.
Right.
And then later was reopened and just relocated in one little spot
But
over.
without the Beatles connection,
exactly.
would anyone
without
have cared?
Liverpool tourism, without any of this,
Right.
I don't think the Cavern Club would have been reopened. And I think that would have been so cool to touch on. Like, to see an empty, like, dirty Matthew Street, maybe with, like, a couple of bums, you know?
Right.
Or, like, something funny.
Right.
And they didn't do that. I love the one part, though, when they were showing, like, the different album covers and they showed Abbey Road, and Abbey Road is a hot mess because it wasn't preserved.
They're like, that's just a street. Who cares
Yeah.
about that?
So that was funny. And they could have kept throwing
And
those
I did
punches.
like when they showed the sign for Penny Lane, like the street sign. The actual street sign, for those of you guys who don't know, is covered in graffiti. Just people sign it all the time. People write their names. I think Paul's signed. Everybody has like signed this street sign. And when they show it in the movie, it's
totally
clean.
Which
I mean, there would probably still be some graffiti on it.
The barber shop where Rocky's looking in the window at the barber shop, and the barber shop is closed.
Right. Which I did like that, but it's like, again, it's like you got so close. Like, let's do more.
Missed it by that much.
I want more of this. I love that.
Yeah,
and
I love that too.
But I mean, the John scene was just so beautiful and so touching. I just cried and cried and cried.
I was hysterical.
Oh, I cried so much.
I've never, like I was saying before, tears welling up, you know, when you're seeing a movie is one thing, but I've never been so full of emotion that I was hysterical and sobbing. It was a river of tears.
They got me big time.
They got me good. So good on you guys for doing that one.
Yeah, that was great.
So the ending of the movie.
Okay.
Where Jack comes clean. What do you think?
Again, to what end? Like, it didn't...
Right? It doesn't make sense because
what happens?
Nobody else gives a shit. Like, oh, I plagiarized all of these. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr wrote all these songs.
Right.
And imagine, like, if John, you know, is watching TV and he goes, I didn't write these songs. Like, it makes no sense.
Right,
but I know that he clears his conscience and it makes him feel better.
Yeah.
And then he uploads the music for everyone to hear so that they can just have the music.
Right.
And
I like
that part.
I like that.
But
he's still getting fame and fortune from it, like, even if he releases the songs for free.
He goes and, you know, becomes a teacher and he plays these Beatles songs for the kids.
It's great.
Great. Okay.
Right. And I just, like, it was just weird because it's like they kind of, again, played it like both ways. It's like either he's going to become a success and like, or, you know, like show John and be like, hey, I did write these songs. I just never was successful with them. And that's kind of, again, I thought the angle they were going to go. Like, yes, you're right. I did write this song. I just never recorded it or released it or had a band to play it with.
How did you see my private journals? Like, how did you know?
I thought something was going to come of this.
Right.
And it just
never didn't.
It just didn't pay. There was no payoff.
No.
There was no payoff. It just was so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to love it and I did love it, but I just...
A common word I keep seeing for other people who've seen it, that it's enjoyable, and I have to agree, it is very enjoyable. There are little things here and there.
I mean, I left with the biggest smile on my face.
Yeah, I did
Absolutely.
too. I left with every time that a Beatles song played, I was smiling, I was tapping my feet. You know, it's a feel-good movie.
Sure.
But the way that they marketed this in that first trailer, is nothing. Expectations versus reality.
Right.
You know, it just
you're right. I wanted like a Back to the Future alternate
Yes.
timeline, like that just didn't.
See, they should have had Robert Zemeckis and
Didn't
Bob
play
Gale
out.
come and do this.
I mean, they had some real talented people, but
Yeah.
it just, they didn't get quite there.
Yeah.
Like, it just missed the mark.
From a Beatle nerd standpoint, I mean, the average moviegoer, romantic comedy lover will probably, love
but I
this.
don't even know, because plot holes are pretty universally.
Well, they got that, though.
I don't know. I just.
Will
it's frustrating. It's frustrating. But all in all, anytime anyone plays a Beatles song, I'm pretty happy. And I was real happy with his performances. Honestly,
it
of
was
the
good,
actual
and
music.
I need to listen to the
Again,
soundtrack.
to your point, would these songs be popular? No, who knows? Maybe
I have
not.
no idea.
I think maybe there would be a market for the more acoustic-y,
Right,
your
like
Yesterdays,
singer-songwriter
your Blackbirds, your Let
type
It
stuff.
Be's. Absolutely. Would some of the earlier Beatles songs, Love Me Do, etc., be
P.S.
successful?
I Love You,
I don't know.
Hold Me Tight, like...
Or even the more like psychedelic stuff. I don't know that would play well.
You have those people out there that like, stuff like the Grateful Dead and Fish and,
Sure.
Primus and stuff. So who knows?
There's
a market. There's a market for everything. But would it?
But
be
I don't think
like
that if the
top
Beatles
40?
released all their songs within the same year,
no,
if that would make
was,
sense either.
It was the Beatles were of their time, and that's what's so wonderful about them. And that these songs, almost 60 years later, we're still talking about it.
Right.
It's still a thing. It's still happening. Which leaves me with this: once the movie ends, and they start playing "Hey Jude," and that's
and I was
exactly
like, I'm
what
not
I
leaving.
did.
I was like, not leaving. I have to
that's
stay and hear this.
That's exactly what I did. Is that because you're taken on this little roller coaster where there's no Beatles, no Beatles, no Beatles, no Beatles. Paul McCartney. Oh my God, goosebumps again.
Right.
Paul McCartney's voice just through that big sound system in a movie theater.
Which I would have loved if they had, over the credits, maybe played some like Beatles concert footage or something like that. Would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Or even
just
if
pictures.
they wanted concert footage of Jack performing this or something, that would have been cool. Like just to see or see different people's reactions, or like scenes of old Beatles footage with Beatle fans and things like that. I would have liked that. I don't think that would have been too hard to do.
No. And the thing is that "Hey Jude" is one of those overplayed Beatles songs where if I didn't hear it again, I don't think I would be sad. But I feel like it was a great choice of song for this occasion.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I stayed through the whole thing. And I heard that a lot of people stayed through the credits to see if there was going to be stuff afterwards. I didn't even think about that. That didn't even cross my mind.
Me neither.
I stayed in my seat because I was so overwhelmed with emotion listening to "Hey Jude." I was trying to actually start one of these, and I put the light on my phone and tried, and nobody else was into it. The cheese stood alone.
In my theater, Jim and I were the only ones that stayed. So
Oh, wow.
people are cleaning up around us, and we're just having a great time. We've had our wine. We're great. But no, nobody else stayed in our theater. I don't know if they did in yours.
No,
Yeah,
they did. My whole row pretty much stayed.
Oh, that's good.
And I was trying to get a sing-along started, and it didn't
I did
happen.
feel like the audience reaction to the movie as a whole, like just, people laughed at the funny parts.
Yeah.
People seemed like the gasp when John, so, I mean, I think the audience reacted well to it, but in my theater they didn't.
Now, my last complaint, because I stayed through the credits, there was a part where they go, "Thank you to Jeff Jones and the rest of the Apple Corps, company." There was no official Beatle thank you.
Again,
I know that the movie is essentially like a love letter to the Beatles' music. Mm-hmm. There should have been a proper credit. Thank you to the greatest band of all time, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't believe at the very end of the movie, the last thing you don't see or dedicated to in memory of John Lennon and George Harrison, nothing.
Just another missed opportunity, which this movie is full of missed opportunities, absolutely.
So that is pretty much my last formal.
Yeah, yeah. And
component.
again, like, you know, I kind of feel like if they had played something over the credits, that could have been
Yeah, that could have been
a kind of a nice little
a touching
tribute.
moment.
Like, but you know, it just kind of ended. And
Yeah.
Although I did love hearing "Hey Jude."
I loved hearing.
I'm a sucker for it. It was great.
See, usually if I hear it on the radio or something, I immediately turn it off.
It is a long song.
Not that even that it's long. I
So
can listen
cool.
to a 7.5 minute song. You know, that's no big deal. It's just that "Hey Jude" is that overplayed Beatles song.
Right. You want like a deep cut.
I always want deep cuts. But that's because I'm picky. I
Right,
always want
right,
deep
right.
cuts.
Yeah, but overall,
But I enjoyed it.
Overall, I liked this movie. I will definitely, like you said, I don't know if I'll see it in the theater again unless, you know, my kids want me to take them. But
Yeah, unless
definitely
somebody,
once it's on Netflix, I'll watch
yeah,
it.
if
for
it's on
sure.
if it's on Netflix, or you know, maybe I'll go as far as to buy the Blu-ray when it comes out. If there's like cool special bonus features,
That'd
because
be awesome.
I need bonus features in my life. But if it's on TV, sure, I'll probably watch it. You know, but was it the greatest thing since sliced bread? No. But as a Beatle fan, you should definitely go and check it out. And wow, we've almost talked for an hour.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you've already checked it out if you're watching this.
Yeah, because
if not,
spoilers.
we spoiled the movie. So
We totally
sorry.
spoiled the whole thing.
We warned you. So. All right.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did.
Thank you for letting me come over
Thank
and
you
talk
for
to you,
suggesting
Caitlin.
to do this, because Jen was like, I have so much stuff I gotta say.
I don't know
I'm
if you guys remember me. Last time you saw
Yes.
me, I was soaking wet at the
well,
Paul
no,
McCartney concert.
and then you've also made a little cameo when we saw the Jukebox
Oh,
Beatles.
sorry. True.
Jen is my bestest Beatle friend.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Caitlin.
You're so welcome. So if this is your first time over here at my channel, please subscribe for more. I try and put out as much Beatle content as I possibly can. And until next time, as always, peace and love. See ya.